Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019 Placer County Transportation Planning Agency meeting held in the Placer County Board of Supervisors chambers. We will begin this morning with a flag salute led by Trinity from Colfax.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Haller.
Here.
Baker. Here. Broadway.
Here.
Burris.
Here.
Holmes.
Here.
Joyner. Here. Spogley.
Here.
Trebus. Yes. Mueller.
Okay, so looks like we have a quorum. I've been informed that there is no closed session this morning, so we will dispense with that. And I'll ask for the approval of the minutes of December 4th, 2018. Any thing on the minutes that anybody has an objection to or change? Seeing none, I'll ask for
I'll move approval.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 4th, 2018. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda review, or anything on the agenda that needs to be changed or added. Or seeing none, I'll just go along with it then. Now is the time for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to address the agency board on any item that's not on the agenda? If so, please step forward, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Alrighty then, we will close public comment and move to the consent calendar. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested citizen may request an item to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. I see nobody making any motion to
Approve consent.
okay, thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, we'll move to adjourning as the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency and convening as the Airport Land Use Commission. Item H, continued public hearing, request to approve a special condition exception to exceed Lincoln Regional Airport Compatibility Zone C1 intensity requirements.
Good morning, members of the Airport Land Use Commission. We're requesting today that you open the public hearing, continued public hearing from December 5th to receive public comments, close the public hearing, and then receive and file the applicant's request to withdraw their request for a special conditions exception. I'll take the opportunity here because I see some new faces on the dais there that PCTPA serves as the Airport Land Use Commission for Placer County. We have 3 airports, public airports, Blue Canyon, Lincoln Regional, and Auburn Municipal Airports. And so we serve as the authority there to look at land use compatibility with airports. So on December 5th, back in November, the applicants Pierre Aragella and Chris Gill submitted an application for 2 applications. One was for the special use district. It also goes by the acronym SUD-B specific plan, and also a request for a special condition exception for 17-acre parcel in the northeast corner of State Route 65 and Nelson Lane. The public hearing was held on 2 public hearings were held on December 5th. The first was for the SUD-B specific plan, and this commission found at that point in time that the SUD-B specific plan was consistent with the Lincoln Regional Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, subject to conditions that were recommended by staff at that time. The second public hearing was for the special condition exception, and at that time we recommended to the commission to continue the public hearing to January 23rd because the applicant was still in the process of determining whether or not they needed to move forward with the special condition exception, and if so, we needed additional information to analyze that proposal. So on December 21st, we received from the Frege Design Group the applicant's representative for the project a letter requesting withdrawal of the application for the special conditions exception. And that's attached as attachment 1. And the applicant requested the withdrawal based on a site capacity and a parking requirements analysis that we requested of the City of Lincoln Community Development Department. And they had, the City of Lincoln Community Development Department's analysis is shown as attachment 2. And that analysis indicated that the big box commercial proposed for that particular 17-acre site did not need the additional intensity requirements that the applicant thought that they may need, and that they could accomplish everything within the airport land use compatibility plan's C1 zoning, as well as the city's zoning requirements specified in the specific plan. So with that, we're recommending today that you open the public hearing, take any comments, if any, and close the public hearing, and by motion, receive and file the application to applicant's request to withdraw the special conditions exception. And I'd be glad to take any questions.
Any question for Mr. Melko before I open up the public hearing?
I would like to note that the applicant representative and a representative from the City of Lincoln are here if there are any questions by the commission on this matter.
Okay, this is the public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing for this item. Anyone wish to address the agency board on this item? I see none, so I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to receive and file the applicant's request to withdraw the request for special conditions exception. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstention? The item is moved. Thank you, Mr. Melko. Get back to my agenda here. So now we're going to adjourn as the Airport Land Use Commission and convene as the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. We'll move to item E, Placer Sacramento Corridor Mobility Plan Contract Award Authorization.
Good morning, Chair Holmes, members of the board. I'm going to be presenting on this item. We've been pursuing state funding, and as a smaller county, we realized that we're at a disadvantage in California. And so competing last year for the Solutions for Congested Corridors program from Senate Bill 1, we were unsuccessful in pursuing the Interstate 80 Auxiliary Lanes project. So since that time, we've had the opportunity to do a corridor plan along Business 80, Interstate 80, and Highway 65 in Placer and Northeast Sacramento County. And that's shown in Figure 1 and also up on your screen. And the corridor would extend in Lincoln from Nelson Lane down Highway 65 to Interstate 80. And then in Auburn from Highway 49 all the way down Interstate 80 to the what is affectionately called the split, and then down Business 80 to US 50, and then along US 50 to I-5. That's about a 45-mile corridor that we would be looking at. And so we're proposing to join forces with Caltrans, CCJPA, and SACOG to develop what we're calling the Placer-Sacramento Corridor Mobility Plan, and that is hopefully going to make us more competitive on a statewide basis. The plan would allow for funding of important projects to PCTPA, including the Capital Corridor Third Track Phase 2 project, the Interstate 80 Auxiliary Lanes, and several other potential projects. And one of those other projects that we're looking at is actually an express lane along the existing carpool lanes on Interstate 80. And what that would allow is opportunity for travelers, residents, and employees of Placer County to be able to pay to use the carpool lane along Interstate 80 that goes all the way down into Sacramento. And we actually looked at these express lanes about 10 years ago, so this would be an update to that study on the feasibility and implementation of express lanes along Interstate 80. Of course, the corridor plan is on a tight time frame here. The corridor plan must be completed by December of 2019 so that we can submit an application in early 2020. And so a request for proposals was released mailed to qualified firms on November 8th with proposals due by December 14th. And a total of 4 firms submitted proposals that were reviewed by an evaluation committee, including PCTPA, SACOG, CCJPA, and Caltrans. And it was determined that Fair and Peers was identified as the top-ranked firm. So we're requesting board action to authorize the executive director to negotiate and sign a consultant contract not to exceed $650,000 for the Placer Sacramento Corridor Mobility Plan, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Luke. Any question from board members? I see none. Is there any? Oh, Mr. Trebus.
I would just like to ask that this money is included in the budget for PCTPA at this time? The amount of money that is being requested, the $650,000, or where is that coming from?
Sure. So at this point, we've secured $450,000. Sparta has allocated $250,000 and CCJPA has allocated $200,000. Our intent is to sign a consultant contract for that amount, but we are still negotiating with Caltrans and SACOG to secure additional funding. And if we get that additional funding, this authorization would allow us to then amend the contract to add additional scope.
Okay, so we're actually signing it for $450,000 with the potential of increasing it to the $650,000.
Right, and that's why we're asking for the additional authorization, so that if additional funding comes around, we can authorize additional scope.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other board member comments, questions? Anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for action.
Second.
Moved and seconded to authorize the executive director to negotiate and sign a consultant contract not to exceed $650,000 for the Placer Sacramento Corridor Mobility Plan. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstention? Hearing none, the item is moved. Thank you. Now we'll move to item J, Transportation Funding Outreach Strategy Update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Wanted to provide you a update this morning on our progress with the Transportation Funding Outreach Strategy. We also have in the audience members of FSB, who is our consultant team working on this project, should you have any questions of them as well. So very quickly, wanted to highlight a number of key areas of the transportation strategy. The first is the sub-county district legislation. As you know, we're working very closely with Mark Watts and his staff to determine a pathway to actually create enabling legislation for this on a statewide basis. And as we've identified before, we're working with 10 to 12 counties in order to provide legislation that this would allow any county in California the ability to create a sub-county district. We've been delayed a number of times, as reported prior, with the gas tax and the election initially, and then there was a change in in theory there was going to be a change in the Transportation Committee of the Legislature of the Assembly. That in fact did not happen, and Assemblyman Bell would retain that chairmanship, and so we're working with his staff and a number of other members of the Transportation Committee as one pathway, so having a single author for the bill from the transportation leadership. And then we have a alternative backup plan, if you will, which is that Assemblyman Todd Garcia from San Diego, who had the legislation that we were riding along with last year for San Diego County. The San Diego County Transit Authority has also needs a bill for some cleanup legislation, and so Mr. Garcia has offered to, as a backup plan, if you will, to author that legislation again. And we'll have to coordinate with San Diego anyway, because the legislation, we obviously wouldn't want it to conflict and create a problem. So we're going to have to coordinate with them anyway, but that is kind of plan B. So plan A is really to have somebody from the leadership author our bill so that we can control our own destiny, if you will. And then our backup plan is to have Mr. Garcia again. He's offered to author the bill. We've kind of set up a self-imposed deadline of the 31st of this month to go in either direction. And we'll recommend going in either direction unless the board tells us otherwise, as their direction was to pursue this legislation. Any comments or questions on
Any questions or
the
comments
legislation
from
part?
agency board members?
I'd like to ask a question about the draft transportation investment plan, if I may.
Okay,
Or are you
I
there
was
yet?
going to get to that, yes.
Then I will hold that.
Okay, okay.
Sorry.
So then we have the actual outreach program itself. And so as you know, we've hired FSB Core Strategies, Cherry Spriggs Hernandez and Aldo Panesci and their consultant team to embark upon a very aggressive outreach strategy, which is to inform the public in a South Placer district in order to determine if there is a need for pursuing or to solidify the interest and need in a transportation funding measure. We are, the board also hired FM3 to do a polling in both in this year and next year, again to guide and solidify the need, the boundaries, and the particulars for a potential transportation funding measure. We created a subcommittee of the board made up of board members Joyner, Broadway, Euler, and Allard, who actually met this morning to guide the polling and to guide FM3 and FSB Core Strategies in that polling. And that meeting went very well this morning, and we're gearing up for an outreach, a polling, which would start in February of this year and then proceed through mid-March. And our hope is to bring back to the board at the March meeting the results of that polling. It may not be available till April, but so March or April meeting, we'd have those results coming back to you. Those results will, again, tell us whether there's interest. It'll actually solidify the boundary, or we'll have to have a good, healthy discussion on the boundary if it doesn't. And then also, what will our messaging be? So there's very particular questions on how we would inform the potential South County electorate should we move forward with that. Any questions on that aspect of it, the polling or the outreach?
Any questions from
Component.
board members? I see none.
Okay. And then the next question, which hits upon Board Member Trevas's question, is the board had asked specifically to have our March 2017 expenditure plan, which the board adopted as an expenditure plan for a potential measure for the South District. The board asked us to bring this back twice, to bring it back prior to going out for polling, because it will determine some of our questions, if you will, and then we would bring it back again after polling with the polling answers to determine, okay, do we need to tweak this because the polling indicated that there was a higher interest in a particular funding or program or a specific improvement. So this is kind of the first, the staff is responding to your first request is to bring this back pre-polling and to get your feedback on the expenditure plan and as it was adopted by the board before, and then make any changes or tweaks to that expenditure plan that the board sees fit. So the plan, the expenditure plan, again, it was discussed at the workshop that we had on the 14th a little bit, but we brought it back again at the request of the board to again discuss how we move forward. The plan, which is an exhibit to your report, is basically broken up into sections. It has major highway projects, senior disabled transit projects, bike ped projects, commuter improvement projects, and then local projects, which is a allocation that would go to each jurisdiction in the South District for their own local roads and improvements. And then there's also a competitive projects program, so we'd reserve a certain amount of funding for on a competitive basis, so that if a project came up that didn't fit into these categories but was of high interest to the board, it could award a competitive type of project. And then lastly, a small amount of money set over to administer the program, and then also to provide oversight. Wanted to note that there is one specific item in here, financing. It's part of the major highway projects. The anticipation is that we would bond for a certain amount of this funding, probably not all of it, but a portion that was ready to move forward. And so there's a very significant cost item. As you know, bonding is very expensive, but it is needed to move some of these projects forward. The rest of them would be a pay-as-you-go basis. So that is our expenditure plan. I wanted to note that we are updating our sales tax analysis so that we are assured that we will be getting a substantial sales tax back again. We did an analysis initially when the Measure M went out. We did an update to that in 2017. And we're in the process of doing an update right now. We're still waiting for comments back from the finance directors from a couple of our jurisdictions. But the trend right now is we're probably hitting about 1.2 or 1.3 billion over 30 years. So it's a little bit less, at least at this early stage. And the other news coming out of that is that our resident, non-resident analysis, so one of the reasons we chose sales tax as a measure or as a means by which to pay for transportation improvements versus a parcel tax. The main reason for that is that we get a very significant amount of sales tax coming in from folks that do not live in Placer County, and so the board wanted to take advantage of that, if you will. And that's still trending at about 30 to 40%. So there's a 30 to 40% bump coming from that. So when we bring this back to you post-polling, we will have that sales tax analysis complete and assured you that we're comfortable in moving forward with this. And we'll revise this plan, likely downward slightly, to reflect that new sales tax analysis. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions with Commissioner Trebus or any other member of the board.
Your light is on, Mr.
You all look very excited, so.
Oh, you're excited? Good.
I'd like to say I strongly agree with the recommendation and the report, Mike, that, and with the outreach program, even including Supervisor Euler, who's left the room, to be on the committee. That is acceptable to me. My question was twofold on the Transportation Investment Plan. You answered the one on the funding and bonding of that. And the second one is just a very clarification of, in a couple of these items here, it refers to various county-wide projects. And I'd like to have a clarification that county-wide means within the sales tax district or county-wide?
It's within the district.
Within the district.
Within the district. It's not countywide.
Thank you.
These funds are,
No, I understand.
it's a kind of a
that.
legacy left over from the prior expenditure plan, but it is, we are restricted to spending only on things that are in the district.
I
So
understand
thanks
that.
Thank you.
Just some people would be interested in county-wide possibilities.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Director Allard.
Mike, I have a question, not about the funding proposal, but on a bigger picture on the legislation. I should have asked it earlier. Have we had outreach with our state legislators, our assemblymen and senators, on what their position might be and what they might be willing to do to help us with any legislation we would need to create this district?
Yes, sir. Yes, we have had discussions with all of our local delegation who at this point is not interested in authoring the bill, but have all said that this is a very significant interest to the county, and that in past years, especially in the South District, upwards of 70 to 80% of the electorate voted in favor of this in 2016, and that they would, if polling holds true, that they would be interested in assisting with the measure as it moves forward with a significant author on a statewide basis. So,
Any other comments from board members? Seeing none, does anyone in the audience wish to address the board on this item? See none. Do you need us to take action, or is this just?
No, there was one other thing, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, that I did not mention that I wanted just to highlight, so you'll be aware that it's going to be coming back to the board, and that is, along with this expenditure plan, there was also adopted by the board, and we did not include it in this staff report, but we will bring it back post-polling, is the board also approved a concept of transferring TDA dollars or LTF dollars to the remainder of the county, roughly $2 million of TDA dollars from the South County jurisdictions to the other jurisdictions. And we'll bring that back to you again, just so you have that before you to solidify that, that notion, if you will, which would help the rest of the county while the South County is benefiting from this potential funding measure. So we'll bring that back to you again.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, then, no action required, just an update.
No, this concludes my report, and we will move forward on all of these fronts.
All right. So now we'll move to item K, Federal Legislative Program for 2019.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the board, very quickly, this is the time of year where we bring back to you both our federal and state legislative programs for the year. You will see that on the federal side, it's very similar to last year's initiative. To be frank, there isn't a whole lot going on at the federal level, especially not just with the shutdown, but on other fronts. There's been other priorities that have taken the attention of the administration, and we got all interested in a priority package that the administration had put together for a list of priorities in 2018. We thought that there was going to be an infrastructure bill associated with that. There was some discussions at a congressional level and a lot of talk, but not a lot of specific action. And so in a sense, our legislative priority would be the same, because we hear a lot of talk and a lot of energy and interest when the shutdown hopefully concludes soon, that we would be following and tracking a new infrastructure bill, a new transportation bill, which would very much needed to shore up the Federal Highway Trust Fund and to provide funding for a number of key programs. In the meantime, we'll also, as stated in last year's priorities, we would recommend that we assist our local jurisdictions with potential grant programs, be it for build or infra along those lines. So we would again ask the board's permission to support those local agencies' programs as our agencies may apply for those. And we provided just an update of projects that we would be pursuing along those lines on the federal side. So with that, that concludes our report. Again, very similar to last year's agenda, just fast forwarding it to 2019.
All righty. Any questions for the director regarding the federal legislative program for 2019? I see none. Anybody in the audience wish to address us on this? Then we'll move it back, bring it back for action. Excuse me. This is the part where someone makes a motion.
Move approval.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item K, the excuse me, federal legislative program for 2019. Now we'll move to item L, the state legislative program for 2019.
You actually want to take a vote?
Pardon?
You actually want to take a vote?
Oh, yeah, let's go ahead and vote on that. All those in favor, please say aye. I'm sorry. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Thank you, I got a little bit choked up there. Thanks for keeping me on track. Now we'll move to item L. This is state legislative program for 2019.
Yes, sir. So on this, again, a kind of a similar message of the same priorities as last year, because we're focused in on the measure by which we are pursuing for a sub-county district legislation. Again, that is our number one priority. For the PCTPA, we recommend that it remain the same. The difference in this year is that this year we do not have a gas tax or a referendum for that gas tax on the docket. So we're recommending that we track SB1. We provided a transparency report process that the board adopted last year. So we will annually report on the what our jurisdictions and our spending in all of the categories of SB1. We will also track SB1 as proposed to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing in terms of providing funding which best matches the priorities of the of Placer County and its jurisdictions. Case in point would be for the ATP program. There's a initiative or discussion to change that to a formulaic versus a competitive program, and we would track that very carefully because it may not match the priorities of our cities and the county, or it may. So we need to work very carefully and closely on that endeavor, on that specific component of SB1 as an example of tracking that. So with that, I conclude my report and answer any questions that you might have. I would note that both the federal program and the state program were coordinated with our representatives that we've hired, Santiago Esposito on the federal side and Mark Watts on the state side have worked closely with staff to formulate these recommendations to you.
Alrighty. Any questions regarding the state legislative program? Seeing none, anyone in the audience? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for adoption. It's been moved in second to adopt the state legislative program for 2019. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item is moved. Thank you. We'll now move to item M, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, sir, and members of the board. Very quickly, just a couple items of note for you this morning, but very significant items. One is on your dais is a notice of the California Transportation Commission meeting. We've been reporting to you on this meeting, a very significant item for Placer County, where we in the city of Rockland and the city of Roseville I have the opportunity, because they chose us, to have their January meeting. The meeting itself will happen at the Rockland Event Center. And then we'll be having a reception and site tours, which I'll describe here in a second. So the first item that we have as part of that January 29th through 31st extravaganza, if you will, is a commissioner bus tour. And so we've asked we've asked and CTC has asked as well to have James Corliss, the SACOG Executive Director, join David Kotrosky with CCJPA and Amarjeet Benapal, who's the Caltrans District 3 Director, along with our chair, Jim Holmes, to do a bus tour with the commissioners. Very short bus tour, if you will, of mainly South Placer County. They've asked to focus on very specific projects, including the downtown Roseville project. They're really focused on ATP projects these days, and so they specifically asked for us to focus on those. So we're going to take them and show them 8065 interchange, which is, again, a very important project to us. That downtown project, as well as a focus on the Roseville train station and development around the old town Roseville. Really, that's the amount of time we have available. It's a very short time for for the commissioners. And so we'll be doing that on the 29th in the afternoon. Simultaneously, Luke will be entertaining the staff of the CTC. It's very important to make sure that the staff are up to date on our projects, because if you don't get it through the staff level, you don't even get to be on the board level. And so Luke, who works already very closely with the CTC staff, is leading a staff-based tour, we have a longer time with them, and that tour will be roughly about the same projects, but we're also adding Highway 49 and the Sideway Gap project to that up in Auburn, so we have a little more time with that group. In the evening, so both those bus tours will be followed by a reception, which you've all been invited to, as well as other elected leaders from throughout the county, and other folks will be headed to a reception that we're holding to welcome the commissioners to Placer County. That'll be held from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Falls Event Center. That location was chosen because the CTC chose the Hyatt Hotel as their base of operations, if you will, for this meeting. And so we chose that center right next to them for convenience sake. We have, I did not get a report this morning, but I think over about 140 now, 140, I'm sorry, 147 RSVPs, so we're doing very well in terms of folks interested in that event, again, from all over the county, as well as there'll be people coming from all over the state who actually come to these meetings and to see how that have business with the CTC. I wanted to note that this reception is actually being sponsored by many of our engineering firms in Northern California and throughout the state. So this reception comes at no cost to PCTPA or the county. It is being paid for entirely by the private sector and through our partner FSB Core Strategies, who's coordinating the funding for that project. So, and then that project, we will again do another welcoming of them, which will be done by Vice Mayor of Roseville, Krista Bernasconi, and myself to that event. We'll do a short opening. And then the CTC meeting will happen over the next couple days on the 30th and 31st. Again, the CTC they set their own priorities and policies for particular meetings, things of interest. And this meeting, they've placed a high emphasis on disadvantaged communities, if you will. And so opening that meeting and welcoming them to the Rockland Event Center will be Councilman Broadway, myself, but we're also adding City Manager of Colfax, Wes Heathcox, who's going to talk about the importance of the roundabout project in Colfax to the rural community. And Colfax, as you know, is one of our disadvantaged communities in the county. So it's an opportunity to highlight a rural community and what a little bit of funding could be very significant to a community like that, with the roundabout project and the development that's going to spur and the economic development that's going to spur in Colfax. So we have 6 minutes to welcome them and tell them about that. So. So that's one half of my report. Is there any questions on the meeting?
As far as the bus tour, where do I need to be to catch the bus?
You will
At
meet
what
us
time?
at the Rockland Event Center at
Oh, okay,
1:30.
all right, good.
So
Be important for me to know that. Okay. Let me know. Okay.
yeah. And we can provide transportation or coordination if you need that as well. So.
Okay, well, thanks.
I should say that the city of Roseville has graciously donated buses for that tour. So Roseville Transit has donated buses for the purpose of that tour. I should really note, though, that the commissioners are paying for their own bus fare, which is a very important thing.
Oh, yeah.
They have to pay for bus
That's
fare
right.
on those buses.
Yeah.
So they're not getting a free ride. So.
So are they donating the bus or just providing the bus?
They're providing the
Okay.
bus, but they have to.
Nice to have.
One of the legacy requirements that dates back to the, I think, late 1800s is that if you utilize a form of public transit or other transportation that is not your own and you're an elected official, you actually have to pay the actual regular fare. So it's not significant, but
has to do with
it is
railroad.
significant, so.
All right, good.
So, the last item I wanted to note, but actually very, very important, is the Highway 49 project. Some of you know a little bit about this, but we've over the past few years have undertaken a very large group effort of not only PCTPA, but its consultant Wood Rogers and Caltrans, City of Auburn, and Placer County to put together a comprehensive package of projects for improvement of Highway 49 and sidewalks and rehabilitation of the roadway and bike lanes. We conducted a very extensive community outreach as part of that project, which is led by our senior planner, Aaron Hoyt, and other members of the staff. Kathleen Hanley and Luke also participate very heavily in that project. Following putting together a scope of work for that project, our staff, led by Aaron, put together a grant application, which included Farron Piers, also as part of that team, as well as the folks I mentioned earlier. We submitted a grant application to the tune of $14.3 million, which adds to the Caltrans portion of the project. So Caltrans has already dedicated $50 million towards highway improvements from their SHOP program along Highway 49. And so we applied to fill in the gaps, if you will, on the sidewalks, a grant application for $14.3 million. Preliminarily, we actually have been notified by the state that we are successful at getting that $14.3 million grant.
All right.
Actually, the meeting of the CTC in Rockland, the CTC will take action at that meeting on that specific grant. So kind of ironic that we have the meeting here in Placer County, and the grant that we just got to make a huge improvement on Highway 49 is going to be confirmed at that. But that's so all told, we have about a $65 million investment that's going to be made over the next 3 to 4 years on Highway 49. Initially, Caltrans will be coming in first with their portion to rehabilitate the roadway and the sidewalks and the bike trails in their area, and then we'll come in a little bit later with $14.3 million, also administered by, and the construction will be administered by Caltrans, but it will be done in phases, and will make a magnificent impact along Highway 49. Also, last note that a portion of this grant, so we a lot of times we build infrastructure in our county, but one of the requirements and benefits of a grant like this is we actually have the ability to provide technical assistance for this. So we're working with the Placer County Department of Public Health and the 6 schools that are located along the corridor. We reserved $750,000 to do a specific Safe Routes to Schools program. So it'll teach those schools and the people that utilize those schools and the students in those schools how to use these new improvements that we're building.
Good.
So, very happy to let the board know about that project. Again, a couple of the board members already know a little bit about it because it's in their areas of interest, but we wanted to make sure the board knew about this, and we're very, very happy with bringing this investment to Auburn.
I've lived and worked on Highway 49 in North Auburn all my life, and it's like, sidewalks on Highway 49? I mean, good golly. I used to ride my horse down Highway 49 back in the day. So anyhow, it's a much needed. It was in the first half of the last century. Mr. Smarty Pants. Alrighty, any other thing from the director?
I just, we will continue throughout this program to work very closely with the City of Auburn, Placer County, all of the businesses along and property owners along Highway 49 to make sure that this project goes off as smoothly as possible. So good news is we got the money, but we have to work very hard to make sure that it has a positive impact upon Auburn and Placer County. So.
All right, very good. Any questions from, yeah. Yes, Mr.
Can I make a comment?
Go right ahead, yeah, this is your last meeting, so go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to relay that this is the conclusion of my 8th year on the PCTPA, and I will be moving way far out of the county to Davis, which will be closer than where I live now, so that
The People's Republic of Davis, is that where you're?
yeah, right. So this is my last meeting with the PCTPA, and it's been a great experience. I appreciate the Board of Supervisors who make my seat's appointment on a countywide basis, but it's traditionally been from the North Lake Tahoe, Eastern Placer County area, so that there is someone here to mention that once a month so that everybody else, as I was telling Trinity, remembers that there's a full county here, that we need it. So in my leaving, I have recommended, and I think the Board of Supervisors will be approving Ms. Jamie Wright as the replacement for this seat, who is here today. And Jamie's the Executive Director of the Truckee North Lake Tahoe Transportation Management Association, as well as being closely in touch with TART and Tahoe Transportation District, works with dial-a-rides and unmet transportation needs with Placer County Planning Agency. So I think she'll be a wonderful addition to the board. And again, my appreciation to Mike and the rest of the Board of Supervisors for the opportunity to have served this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. It's too bad you have to leave so soon. And we welcome Jamie when you come at our next meeting. But since you've opened up that, there's this nice piece of plaque here that we are going to present to you, and it's my great honor to do this. And I'm going to read it to you, okay? Presented to Ron Trebus in appreciation of his dedicated service as a champion for local and regional transportation infrastructure in Placer County in the entirety. I added that part, just so you know. And providing guidance and support in finding solutions to transportation funding challenges. The Placer County Transportation Planning Agency Board of Directors from 2012 to 2019, Ron Trebus is commended for effectively serving as a citizen-at-large representative working toward the betterment of the Tahoe area as well as the entire county. So if you'll join me here at the chairs, whatever you call this. Who's going to take, oh,
Thank you, sir.
you are welcome.
It's a pleasure to be up here. This is something I haven't been allowed to do, is be
Yeah,
the
we
chair.
did that on purpose. Took us 8 years to. Here, you get to hold that, so.
Oh, thank you.
You gonna take a picture?
I'm working on it.
Oh. We don't have much to work
What do
with.
they do these pictures?
They just,
It's warming up.
They take them.
yeah, they do. No, they're gonna send you one.
You done?
No,
No, we haven't got that.
no.
Come on, I can't hold this in much longer.
All right, here we go. Lovely. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Board direction to staff. Is there any direction from board members to the staff? I see none. You have your informational updates before you. And so our next regularly scheduled PCTPA board meeting is February 27th, 2019. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.